welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. And today's topic, these particular Mexicans, the ones that supplies to, that have this ironic hypocrisy and have the nerve to say, telling the Gringos, they talking about the Anglos basically, because Black Americans are in Mexico like that, by the way. So they're telling basically the numbers of Anglo Gringos and however some other mixed in there in Mexico areas to leave while being quietness on numbers of their cousins, numbers of their friends, numbers of themselves. At this moment, near future, not too much, in the extra near future. And the ones that's heading to and already in the U.S. right now. And they are plain ignorant, right? They are plain ignorant to that situation. I'm like this on that. Yeah, you trying to play ignorant to pretend that you don't know what's going on. Doing supplies to, and again, this is not about numbers of the good number of Mexicanos, which I don't want to go on all that because a few hundred years ago, by the way, there's no such thing as Mexico, which is a whole different topic. And I might get into some chat GBT, and I might not, just depending. So the thing about it is, it's the irony of it. Because the thing about it is, there are certain Mexicanos, and I'm not talking about again some of the good ones, the good brothers and sisters, Mexicanos, which is kind of funny in itself, because see, they're not talking about the Afro Mexicanos. Oh, they don't want to talk about the Afro Mexicano versions, right? Oh, no. They don't want to talk about them, right? See, they like these versions, right? That talk like this. Let the Negro fight his own battles. His problems are not mine. I don't want to ally with him. Felix Terragina, Mexican-American president of LULAC, 1956 to 1960s. See, this is what certain numbers are, quite a number of Mexicanos, they like to be like this vile hatred, anti-American Black rhetoric that came out of this particular white Hispanic mouth. But see, various parts in Mexico, they get very quiet again about the treatment of Afro-Mexicanos, right? But at the same time, they want to be like, oh my goodness, these basically Anglo Gringos, they need to leave because the price is going up, the rent is going up, but they quiet on vice versa. When the Mexicanos fleeing Tel Norte left and right every day, coming to America to get some of these benefits, and these border break illegal immigrant women who know they're not innocent. They're going to sit there popping those babies like candy poppers. Bam, bam, bam. And automatic citizenship off the backbones of what? Black pain of Black Americans. Oh, what's a different whole topic in itself? Because they want quite a number of Mexicanos. They want to sit there and have their cheeseburgers and tacos and enchiladas and hamburguesas and whatever else, right? Some sopa, right? Some jalato and a side of ensalada. And say, well, we're not going to sit there gaining weight. No, you can't have it like that. But they really do think they're supposed to have it, whatever way they want. While at the same time, Black Americans are supposed to continue to keep going through Black pain and be like, well, you know what? They're humans, right? Which is a whole different topic in itself that quite a number of the Mexicanos, the ones applies to, they're laughing at Black Americans, the one that don't know the games, right? See, the thing about it is, let me go ahead and share my screen for a second. See, you know what? Before I do that, when I was talking about Black Mexicanos, so I was trying to see how I would open up this podcast a little bit because it's going to be a real good podcast. Oh, some people had not seen this particular image right here. Memin Paguen. Oh, there's quite a number of people have not seen this. Oh, there's some Mexicanos in Mexico. Oh, some of them know about this. And it's a few Black Americans in America, very small amount, and a few of the culture, actually not that many, that I've never heard about, Memin Paguen. Memin Paguen was this comic book, should we say, some generations ago, right? And they saw how certain Black America, what they thought was Black Americans, and the Aunt Your Mama look, and the anthropomorphic, animalistic type of male with the little cat in his head, who looks like a little black boy, right? And so they got that little caricature, and they put they created that in a comic book in Mexico, and it's called Memin Paguen, right? And there, not actually, some years ago, there was some little bit of upsetness, and you had some Mexicanos. Well, what's the problem? I mean, we hold this particular little anthropomorphic, basically little black ape-looking boy, basically, and it's Aunt Your Mama looking, orangutan-looking Black woman. We look at them as greatness, which of course they didn't, right? Because if you talk about Speedy Gonzalez, oh, they take it personal. If you talking about some Speedy Gonzalez, let Black Americans have some Speedy Gonzalez type of caricatures. Oh, some Mexicanos will go crazy. See, that's why quite a number of them have some hypocrisy, right? So I'll tell you about it. Take a look up Memin Paguen. So you had certain type of little ironic, little slick ass Mexicanos. Not talking about some good ones, because those are very small coming to America, because they had their own little agendas going on. And one is called Absalon. For people who don't know what that is, just look it up, Absalon. And I'll play a little bit of that in just a little bit. So take a look up Memin Paguen. This is in Mexico. This comic book came up. Now they all mad about, oh my goodness, Trumpism. He's doing these raids. See, they want to have the best of many worlds, right? Get those Anglo Gringos out of here, because in Mexico, because the price is going up. You know, there's 30 plus countries in Mexico, but it's like the ones that supplies to, right? Get those Gringos out of Mexico, because they're causing so much gentrification. Oh, but it's okay to have various parts of Mexicanos taking over various places in California, kicking out various types of Black Americans, numbers of Mexicanos in Chicago, numbers of Mexicanos in various parts of Louisiana, etc., right? Get more demographics in there, right? Playing little slick games, but you ain't supposed to say that in numbers of Mexicanos having Mexican flags in America. Do you see this irony? And they sure don't want millions of American Blacks to see these little silly games that's going on, right? Like this Memin Paguen. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So let me sit there and show you. I had a couple of different also podcasts I did on some of this hypocrisy, right? This is one of them. Make sure you can see this. This is one of them. When hypocrisy Mexican ones protest South American migrants in Mexico. But are they not supposed to be still Hispanicism? Still supposed to be Latinoism? Right? See how that game goes, right? But certain types of Mexicanos, they're like, no. We're not those kind of Hispanics. You see how that goes, right? So there's some slick Mexicanos. I mean, some dastardly ones. Some little nauseated ones. Because they want to have all the little perks and things like that, right? They want to keep everything Mexicano-wise, a certain type Mexicano-wise in Mexico, but have the opportunity and the openness and the agenda to be able to go to El Norte to take over various parts of America, right? You see how that goes, the slick. And there's not enough people call these people out. Enough of them. Trumpism, oh, wow, right? What's going to last 4 years? Record-breaking, illegal border breaking, illegal immigration going on. In numbers of immigration pseudo games that was going on, right? Now, when 2028 election and Trumpism is out of office, and then watch how still record-breaking numbers going to go right back up. Then what? See the games, right? But let me play this a little bit. This again from one of the podcasts I did on this, on the Real CP show part. And if you like this video, please think about subscribing or maybe liking the video. But let me just play this a little bit. Yes. The hypocrisy is extremely real. There are certain numbers within certain Mexicans that do think that Black Americans are supposed to sit there and fight for certain numbers of their rights, right? Be it across the high parts of the border and be it however sections within the states. Again, you see the nerveness of that, right? But at the same time, when I show this video that happened several years ago, and even now that you're really not going to sit there, our main media is surely not going to make sure that they're going to show certain ones across that border still having their vitriol for certain type of migrants from Central America and South America. They're not going to sit there and show that. They make sure not to do that, right? Because there is a propagandist, right, within the various parts of Americanism, right? Oh my goodness, look what the Trumpism is doing to numbers of the Mexicans, right? And however other personnel, right? While they sitting there burning police cars, right? Sitting there breaking in buildings, sitting there causing chaos, freeways being shut down, chaos going on in so many other different parts of California, parts of New York, parts of Texas, even in certain parts of up there in the Midwest type areas. The list goes on. But so you see the point. That's just one of my videos, right? But at the same time, they want millions of American Blacks just look the other way, right? They want however personnel, the Gringolization of various parts of Mexico. They got to get out to certain types of Anglos versions in America that's going across that border and setting up shop and stuff like that. They want them out. But at the same time, again, they want to be able to have certain type of Mexicanos with their little slick little game they playing to be able to have the various types of opportunities to sit there and want to get to kick out the Anglo Gringos, because again, ain't a lot of Black Americans going over there, right? So the numbers of Mexicanos, the ones applies to, they want to have the agenda, acceptability to be able to kick out and maintain Mexicano-ness, right? But at the same time, but they don't want nobody telling them what to do, what their cousins and relatives and friends that's going to, and ones that are demographically onslaught in various parts of America, which is one of the agendas is called Absalom. And I'll play this a little bit. I'll play just a little bit of that. It's a video called Absalom on that. It basically is called the retaking over of the Southwest and various parts of states, right? By Mexicanos, right? Acting as if that's part of acting as if various parts of the United States is Mexico. That's a bunch of bull testicles. Mexico, a few hundred years ago, there was no such thing as Mexico, right? There's no such thing as Mexicans like that. But you see the game, right? And what about the various parts of indigenous other people, Mexico? That came before Mexicanos, right? You see this little game. There are quite a number of indigenous people that don't speak Spanish. Before the Spanish conquistadors came over there, and especially the 1519s, the 1500s, people didn't know, you call Mexicanos, nobody knew what Spanish was like that. You see this little game. The game is wild on that. So let me go ahead and share my screen. This is another. Let me try to go a little bit quicker. This is another. Let me see. Hold on. Oh, this is another video I did. Another podcast I did. Again, this is in California, not Mexico. This is a little nauseating, little dastardly agenda. Mexicano got his big old giant Mexican flag, right? Anti-legal, right-wing, the anti-legal right-wing immigration, terrorism, protesters, chaos. They want open borders. Now, could you imagine some people going across that border with a big old giant American flag and protesting over there saying, oh my goodness, y'all want open borders, right? Well, we want open borders too. So we should be able to go across that border and set up shop and do what we want to do too. Nope, because various parts of Mexicanos, the ones applies to, are damn sick in their little slick ass mentalities. They want the best of various parts of agendizations. They want no open borders, but at the same time, they will control their borders of people going across, Anglo personnel going across that border setting up shop, and a few other different cultures. Oh, but they ain't saying nothing about the number of Chinese over there and some other cultures. Oh, you sounded quiet, they get on that because they know there are places. And again, as I said already earlier, right, they ain't talking about the Afro-Mexicanos over there, because Afro-Mexicanos over there, they're still being treated as fourth and fifth class citizens over there. I'm gonna play some just a couple of minutes on something about that, right? But they don't want to talk about that. Look at the telenovela type places and things like that, and see what kind of stuff what they're playing. The telenovelas, who are they playing? 99% what? Anglo-looking white. You see how that game goes, right? And some of the small amount of black skin Mexican over there, I've seen a couple of ones that were overweight or acting in some silly way, or so they have a few little ones here and there a little bit, but they want the ones European Angloism Spanish look over there, and they think they're slick, right? But same time, oh, we don't want the Anglo Americans to come across that border and set up shop because they gentrifying. Oh, but you had no problem being Mexicanos, the ones supplied to gentrifying various parts of demographics in America, right? Pushing out various parts of American blacks, call American blacks the nig words all over the place, right? That's why I can't stand that N word used like in the public like that. Too many different cultures use that N word, and you ask them, because I have, why y'all use the N word? I don't know. That's why I can't stand that N word usage. It needs to be destroyed and put in a space trash can. But this is what various parts of border break illegal immigrant women. Oh, they want some of this free food stamps. Oh, and by the way, which is the stuff going on talking about November. And we're going to see it's not going to be as gigantic as people try to make it seem like. It's not. There might be a few cuts over there in November with the food stamps, but it ain't going to be gigantic as people trying to portray it. Oh, no, no, no. And it's unfunny how the hypocrisy of various parts of Anglo numbers of women, because they are some of the largest recipients of food stamps, how they have videos all over the place. Oh my goodness, my food stamps might be cut. Oh, but society, many places, many parts of media want to portray what? Black women. You see how that disgusting little game goes, right? And watch this. Oh, again, related to this topic, how many Mexicanos, because they are the largest demographic group within Hispanicism, Latinoism in America. And how many of them are illegal? How many of those kids that were used as pawns were under the still under Howard Pseudo, the DACA program, by the way, that Obama did and can't get no reparations, right? The insultingness of that. And so how many of these border break illegal immigrant women, they're sitting there getting food stamps, right? See, most people ain't talking about that part. Well, what about the numbers of border break illegal immigrant women have getting food stamps? All these years still popping out those kids like popcorns, right? And being a recipient of those kids of being off of black pain, right? Automatic citizenship based upon the 14th Amendment of the Constitution around the 1868 time frame, right? When it wasn't that many Mexicanos in America like that. But they're benefiting off black Americans. And numbers of Mexicano males out there who know they don't have the best of both worlds too, right? Send a lot of money down back across that border called remittances. Oh, see, they don't like people knowing those kind of games they're playing, right? But those women, border break illegal immigrant women, oh, they want to get this free food stamp, this free baby formula, the Similac. Numbers of them get free rental assistance. right? Utilizing those kids. See, the game is wild. The game is wild, man. So let me go ahead and actually, I was trying to figure out how I wanted to sit there in addition to open this up. But remember this right quick. I think I know I'm going to do this. But let me see this again. Let the Negro fight his own battles. His problems are not mine. I don't want to ally with him. Felix Terragina, the white Anglo Mexicano, Mexican American president of LULAC 1956-1960, right? Oh, see, so those hypocritical type Mexicanos in Mexico, they get quiet on things like this. Again, let me sit there. They get quiet on stuff like that. See, what they're doing is saying, oh my goodness, because people talking about Mexicans, because not all Mexicans that are doing this. I'm like, oh, we want to play that game. So when they try to play that little silly little tactic, I'm like this. Whoop. Oh, excuse me. Hold on. Oh, whoop. My bad. You missed what's wrong with my phone? I think it's saying locking up on me. Oh, wait a minute. I knew. Give me a second. I knew that's going to do that. Every so often, this system acts up because the system does not want people to show certain things, right, in realities. And it did exactly what I thought it was going to dare and do, right? Because again, when you are showing realistic reality, right, especially in this situation right here, all certain type Mexicanos, it's not all Mexicans, right? On that situation, man, this irritates the crap out of me because I had some things set up all over the place on my system, and it removed a lot of stuff in this background. Boy, I despise that crap because I know what kind of games that this system loves to play. So I got to give me a second. I got to sit there. Oh, give me a second. I got to remove some stuff here. Give me a second. This is irritating, and I'm so sorry about that. I need to add a couple of things back. See, this system is despicable because, again, it does not like for people to relay over certain types of powerful information. So let me go ahead, and what I'm going to do is share my screen. Give me a second. I got to add this video back. Let me show you some of this hypocrisy. And I was saying earlier about the Afro-Mexicanos. They don't want to talk about that version, right? Give me a second. They don't want to talk about the Afro-Mexicanos and how they're being treated, right? It don't take but half of the researchers find out how the Afro-Mexicanos still being treated in Mexico. But you got these little wannabe Anglo-Mexicanos. These want a certain type of mestizo Mexicanos. They want to play slick tactics, especially the kind of pauper-looking ones, the ones that's not quite telenovela Anglo-looking ones, because they mind their own business. Have you noticed that the ones come across that border, the Mexicanos come across that border legally? Oh, I mean, there are others too. But and some other group of people, they don't look like the Anglo version of their own particular country. These come across the border kind of like a popper type of look to it a little bit, right? Not someone that looks like a telenovela type of European Mexican white one, a European Spanish white ones. You see how that game goes, right? But let me go ahead and play this particular video. This is a gentleman by the name of Ace Live. Ace has been around for a long time in the travels and a travelness of spirit, should we say, in various travels. Got some various kinds of great videos, but he's been around for quite a long time on this travel space. On that. But let me play this. He was in this particular video. He's in Mexico, and that he went to this particular museum. I don't go into that too much because that's a whole different topic about the Olmecs, because the Olmecs that what you call had Africoid resemblance, not some what we call Mexicanos, 0%. Did they look like that? But you got certain type of slick Mexicanos trying to the ones who try to play the game, or play the silly infantile game to try to equate the Olmecs with Mexicans when the Olmecs predate the Mexicans. They don't get the hell out of here with that game, right? Right? It's a silly tactic to try to play. So let me play this on a situation with Ace.
I think we are on the right spot. Now let's start. this restaurant. She, from afar, she looked like she was Afro Mexican. So yeah, fingers crossed. We're gonna go to that restaurant where we saw that mirror in the boat and investigate there. But I can see why immediately why people would come to stay here. It's just calm, chill vibe. Okay, guys. So this looks like some form of hotel / restaurant here. But this is where I think I saw the mirror, so let me check out the mirror real quick. Alright. Beautiful mirror here. So this is what I could see when I was riding through. Hola, ese tú. ¿Cómo estás, amor? Yo vine aquí para hacer una video especial. Yo estoy buscando afrodescendientes mexicanos. Oh my God. What? Can I give you a hug? Oh my God. Beautiful mirror here. So this is what I could see when I was riding through. Hola, ese tú. ¿Cómo estás, amor? Yo vine aquí para hacer una video especial. Yo estoy buscando afrodescendientes mexicanos.
Boy, was she pointed finger herself?
Yo estoy buscando afrodescendientes.
Man, he said he was looking for the African descendant Mexicanos. And she pointed herself, and he had some good music in that background. Oh man, boy, that was nice. And well, she's gonna anyway. I'm just gonna play the video. And the thing about it is, again, Afro-Mexicanos are still a lot of times invisibleness in various parts of Mexico. On that, it was only but it wasn't that long ago that some of them got recognized in Mexico, right? Because you got certain type of gender type personnel that was like, no, we're all Mexicans. The hell that is. Right? If that was the case, then how is it that you had numbers of Afro-Mexicanos had to fight to be recognized, not to be diluted down, right? You know, like in various parts of America, they keep trying to tell Black Americans you ain't supposed to have your uniqueness. Just say you're American, but at the same time, for centuries, Black Americans have not been overall treated as Americans. You see the game, right? In the nerve of some Black adjacent tethers who had to flee various parts of Africa, flee various parts of the beautiful Caribbean islands the one applies to. It's only a small amount of them in America that are humble because the system only allows some of those come to the cracks. Overallness, what they allowed to come from various places in Africa, which is a whole different irony in itself, because there are many numbers of Africans who don't even like being called Africans, right? And what about numbers of Chinese in various parts of Africa? What about numbers of Indians from India in various parts of Africa? What about people like the Boers, right, in South Africa? You don't see them being pushed out of South Africa like that, right? What about the Arab versions of latecomers who has the tourism over there, who takes control of tourism over there in Egypt when they weren't even around like that when the pyramids were being built, but they control the tourism for the Egyptian tourism version. So where's that Pan-Africanism to sit there and say, hey, y'all can't do that, right? You see the game. What about that skin bleaching epidemic that's going on in various parts of Africa? What about the tribalism going on in various parts of Africa? Oh, they don't want to talk about that. But people want to just say, Black America, you just call yourself African. You need to get out of here with that. Black Americans are all their own unique culture, right? Just like the beautiful parts of the Caribbean. It ain't that many various parts of Caribbean personnel in America, but there are some slick ones that have some nerve to try to act like that they created various parts of music, and they did not in America, right? And how many of them came and control a lot of their Caribbean tribalism, and many of them don't like each other in various parts of the Caribbean. They have some Caribbean tribalism going on in various parts of the Caribbean, but they don't want Black Americans to talk about that little tactic. See how the game goes, right? But other people can call up, see, but you can't tell numbers of Caribbean personnel with whatever dozens or whatever formally recognized Caribbean islands in general, I'm just saying, and how many of them had their own little segments of languages and thoughts and culture. You can't just put them in and just say Caribbean in the story, period, in the story. Nope. You can't tell people to say, just say you African in the story and the African content in the story. No one's not going to like you to do that. Right? They'd be like, no, no, no. We are our own tribe, Africa. We are our own make a country of thoughts. We have our own political things. We have our own traditions, like the Caribbean islands. They have their own type of languages, pseudo languages. They have their own type of thoughts, traditions, right? But Black Americans are the only people, right, with an Americanism that people are supposed to be like, just say, hey, y'all don't have any kind of culture. While Black Americans help build a freaking culture, build America up more than anybody else for centuries, besides certain people with predominant culture. I mean, the nerve of some people, right? So, like in Mexico, the little irony game of, well, no, the Afro-Mexicanos, they're just Mexicans. The hell they are. How many of them been treated as, they're still not been treated as an acceptability in a trueness of sense. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. Let's continue. So this is Ace, the guy named Ace Live, that's been the Travis Spear for a long time. So he was in Mexico looking for the basically Afro-Mexicano versions on that. And they still not talked about enough over there. Because there's a mestizo Angloism look that they prefer to have, right? As a predominant look.
Oh my God. ¿Esa es tu empresa? ¿Tú? Hey. This restaurant, ¿cómo se llama este restaurant? What's the name of this restaurant? ¿Tu nombre? Licha. Alicia. ¿Y cuánto tiempo tú tienes esa empresa? Ya hace muchos años. Muchos años, como la... ¿Se vieja aquí? No, como la 30, ¿ah? 60. Ah, 60. No, amor. Los negros aguantamos mucho. ¿Tú vives aquí todo tu tiempo, tu vida? Sí. ¿Tu familia en esa tierra por cuántos años? ¿100 años? Los abuelos, los papás, los tatarabuelos. So like really all her family, this is her island right here. ¿Y qué tienen aquí? ¿Qué está haciendo? Estoy arreglando pescado. Mochinango. Okay. Yo voy a comer hoy aquí, ¿ok? Mochinango. Okay. Yo quiero conocer más afrodescendientes. Afrodescendientes. Aquí. ¿Tú conoces a alguien que pueda...? Aquí estamos varios negritos, vivimos muchos negritos aquí. ¿Dónde yo encuentro? ¿Solo caminando? Todo el pueblo hay muchos negritos. Okay. Afromexicanos. Okay, yes. Qué bueno, que no more. Yo fui a muchos lugares para encontrar, pero es muy difícil por mí. Yo fui a Veracruz, no lo ven. Yo fui a Yanka. Empieza de Puerto Escondido.
See, that's some of the Puerto Escondido, Rio Grande. Some of the Afro-Mexicanos are at a little bit more.
Rio Grande, Cerro Hermoso,
Cerro something, Hermoso, El Zapatito something, Chachacua. Hold on, let me let them say the word. Chachakawa something. And what's the other word? What's the other one?
Cerro Hermoso, Zapotalito, Chacagua, El Azufre, Charco Redondo, Pinotepa, Collante, Morelos.
Oh, let me go back. So you see some of the places that this particular beautiful Afro-Mexicano woman, right? Older type one. She has her own restaurant doing her thing. You see some other places right here that she was saying that some of various parts of Afro-Mexicanos are at. Some other places here she was saying that they're around, but again, they're still hidden in various parts of the Mexican lexicon of the optics. When you say Mexico, you do not 9,000% hear the conversation about Afro-Mexicanos like that, unless you are, trying to look for Afro-Mexicanos in the research and the optics of looking for that. If you're not overall, you're not going to hear too much about them on that. Because again, look at the telenovelas, right? Across Mexico. Look at the weather type various personnel. Look at the various types of wink wink reality shows over there. And you rarely will see any kind of Afro-Mexicanos over there. But they want to tell people, oh my goodness, the various parts of little slick Mexicanos, oh my goodness, we don't want these gringos over here because they're making this rent go up and these prices go up and et cetera, et cetera. But they don't want to sit there. How many of them don't want to treat the Afro-Mexicanos correct or Mexico in various places? The ones it applies to, right? You see how this game goes. But at the same time, want open borders for their cousins, some of themselves, right? Relatives, to go to El Norte, take over demographics in various countries, various states, like various parts of California, which is headquarters 0.0 for various parts of Mexicanos, because it's right by the border. So they have made that the headquarters of immigration and headquarters of various parts of illegal immigration, right? I've done videos already about numbers of them showing hatred toward Black Americans and how many numbers of Black folk, American Blacks up there will still make up a few percentage points. It's all the demographics of Black Americans in California. And those numbers are slightly smaller up in even LA specifically, because various parts of Mexicanos, they're taking over various parts of their places and in other places, in other areas. Look what happened with the LA City Council, where you had some Mexicanos, some white Mexicanos, right? That was sitting there once upon a while, speaking hatred about Blacks, Black Americans up there, right? And there's various types of Mexicanos, white Mexicanos, and wannabe white Mexicanos up there in various parts of LA talking slick hatred about Black Americans, right? But at the same time, so the people, Mexicanos across that border, southern border, they want to complain about, oh my goodness, Gringos. Boy, some of them are some hypocritical, demonic fools because they're slick. I'm not talking about some of the good Mexican brothers and sisters who know they are, who know that there are some slick Mexicanos that don't even like each other, but want to pretend that numbers of them do, because they know most people in America don't speak no Spanish and Black Americans don't speak no overall Spanish, which should be a giganticness of demanding various school districts teach Spanish as a second language. Let me repeat that. There should be a gigantic uproar and outrage from Black Americans more to say, we want Spanish as a second language in our schools. So if you're going to provide English as a second language to some of these personnel with immigration issues, and people knowing that the mama, especially the mama, because the daddy many times not even around, but they want to try to act like, well, Black American males are not around. Man, you get out of here with that tactic. So many of those times, the either border break or legal immigrant mom with the kids are going to these schools, and I speak no English, right? And they have an interpreter, whatever program set for them, right? To sit there and get their demographical onslaught more. But again, there's not enough demand from American Blacks, not enough at all to demand Spanish as a second language, right? And for America, I'm telling you, that should be almost becoming it has to be a necessity. It has to be a necessity. More Black Americans better start demanding Spanish as a second language in their schools. If they're going to have English as a second language off of taxpayers' money, then there needs to be Spanish as a second language for people, especially like for Black Americans. Those kids going to learn, or they're going to fall behind gigantically. If they don't know, I don't care what kind of background of this education, yes, for certain ones might not fall through the crack. And that's fine for certain type of technology positions, other positions, some trade positions, which is that's a whole different topic. But if many of those Black Americans don't get a lot more Spanish, it's going to be over even quicker than I have estimated because of so much immigrational onslaught, so much type of border break, illegal immigration allowed agenda, so many type of groups playing under the people of color banner, and marginalized groups and communities of color playing games with millions of Black Americans, the ones that know that game, right? And still the hatred, demonic hatred of centuries within various parts of America by various certain ones within primary culture that have this vile demonic hatred that they gotta eyeball and see what Black Americans are doing, but at the same time they want to complain about Black Americans. You said that there's some sick ones in various parts of main culture once applies to, right? So much out, and there's not enough Black Americans to say, hey, enough. And because of that, there's only a very small amount of Black Americans that are very tired of it. And because of that, not enough pushback by Black Americans, especially modern day. I have to estimate before that, unfortunately, the overall complete destruction of Black Americans is probably going to be around half a generation to 1 generation at most. And the only people that's going to survive is only a small amount of Black Americans, right? Because Black Americans prior to around, I think, don't quote me around. I'm trying to talk. I'm going to go chat GBT in a little bit. I want to ask some questions on that unless I forget. That prior to around 2000 plus or minus, Black Americans were the second largest population for generations. And because of the liability of an agenda for demographic onslaught, more numbers of Hispanics, especially border break illegal immigrants, were allowed to come across that border. Don't get it confused. They ain't the only people. There's people from various parts of Africa. There's various people from the Caribbean. There's various parts of people from Europe. The list goes on. That are also border breakers. Oh, we don't want to talk about that. But the primariness is going to be, especially within Hispanicism, is Mexicanism. Oh, but they don't talk about that. But they don't have a problem with numbers of Mexicans in America have Mexican flags. The nerve of that is itself, it's an irony, right? But on this video, let me continue because again, this guy named Ace, some great videos. He's been around for a long time in the travel sphere. But he's in Mexico. This video is about he was in Mexico and he was looking for some Afro-Mexicano type people and stuff like that. And this particular beautiful, she's an older Afro-Mexicano. She has her own restaurant and whatever this part of Mexico they're at. And he was asking her where are some other places that for him to find some Afro-Mexicanos, and she was just kind of relaying some different other places.
Morelos, Corralero, toda la costa aquí. Ah, wow. La costa chica en la orilla del mar. Okay. Okay. Corralero hicimos una película que se llama La Negrada.
Tú no eres mexicana, ¿verdad? ¿De dónde vienes, negra? No es para ti. ¿Y entonces? Entonces nada. No es para ti, se acabó.
Los negras me desprecian, no desprecian mi color que entre perlas y diamantes. Esta negra es la mejor. Ay, ay, ay. Oh, tú eres el estrella. ¿Dónde vienes tú? Miami, Florida. Sí, por eso. Sí, aquí estamos los negritos perdidos, olvidados. No, ahora, no.
Oh, let me go back. This is very he was right here.
Sí, aquí estamos los negritos.
And what did she say right here? Over here, we are the Black people, the Afro-Mexicano people who are lost and forgotten. She's sitting there saying, not me saying, she's sitting there saying, this is what various personnel, especially within various parts of Mexico, the ones places applies to, they're trying to, the one places applies, they try to keep the Afro-Mexicanos from really being talked about. This is why, again, that you ain't gonna see them too many on being the weatherman or weatherwoman. They want the European mestizo Mexicano look, right? They want that version on their those telenovela type shows. You see on the hacienda and those nice little residential places and big old giant buildings and stuff. And you see you see those are Anglo-Europeanish Mexicanos, those version mestizo versions, right? And that's the look of various parts of Mexico like to portray to a certain point, right? Because yes, there are certain indigenous people they're allowed to be shown when they want to be shown. But how many indigenous people are not shown, right? And how many do not speak Spanish, right? They were already there before what we call Mexicans. And I keep saying the same freaking thing. Only a few hundred years ago, Mexico wasn't even Mexico. There was no such thing as Mexico. Right? Because Mexico didn't get independence around 1821? Huh? So, right, 200 something years ago? So the 1500s people, the 1600s, the 1700s, there was no such thing as Mexico like that. It was basically like, was it New Spain or the vice royalty of Spain? Not Mexico. See the game, right? But at the same time, they don't want to talk about, again, the Afro-Mexicano people that's been fighting for generations to be recognized, right? But they got the nerve, these little certain Mexicanos in Mexico, the places applies to. Oh my God, we don't want these basically gringos, which I got, man, that gringo word is like chalkboard to me. Because what word do people call in America calling people that... You don't sit there and hear people that have restaurants. You don't hear Black Americans that want to have restaurants. You don't hear numbers of Anglo people that have restaurants calling numbers of Mexicans that go into certain restaurants, calling them gringos, like some kind of word equivalent to gringos, right? Because that's discriminatory. You don't hear numbers of Anglo American personnel or certain numbers of Asian personnel. You know, the list goes on. And they have a price difference for Mexican. Do you know how crazy that would be? Right? They turn around and give them the Mexicano prices. Do you know the outrage that would be from various parts of Mexicans saying, this is wrong. Why are you giving us the Mexicano prices? Right? But how many Black Americans and some other people too that go to different countries and they give them some crazy gringo prices? That's an insult. And most time people just accept it overall. But Mexicanos and some other people, they won't tolerate that coming to America and somebody gives them some kind of different prices. Oh God, these games. But back to this. Older Afro-Mexicano, she's sitting there telling Ace, the gentleman that's been in the travel spirit for a long time, that over there in the part of Mexico they're at, we are the Black people who are lost and forgotten, because they try to keep them out of the spotlight as much as possible, while at the same time saying, oh my goodness, they call themselves Mexicans, but at the same time don't want to classify, don't want to sit there and give them their own uniqueness, but try to dilute them down. That's some old despicable type stuff, right? But they say there's a lot of, what did it say? But they say there is a lot who don't know of our existence, the Afro-Mexicans. Exactly. On that. So this particular older Afro-Mexicano that has a restaurant, whatever this part of Mexico that this guy named Ace is in, he's been around the travel game for a long time. He's trying to look for specifically Afro-Mexicanos and stuff like that. And he came and he was on this particular boat with this other guy, with this other gentleman that he tried, this Black American man, a Black man, he travels around too. He's happened to be, just come together on this particular podcast, on this particular travel part that he was going to Mexico. And he saw this restaurant along the water with this beautiful looking black Mexicanos. And so they kind of pulled up along whatever the pier part of it, and they wanted to see who this was. And so this is the beautiful older Afro-Mexicano woman that owned the restaurant on that. So we see what she says, but they say there is a lot who don't know of our existence as Afro-Mexicans. But at the same time, you got these mestizo papa-looking Mexicanos the one supplies to, right, that are doing a protesting all over the place, various parts of Mexico. Oh, my complaint, one supplies to complain about, oh, the Gringos are coming over there, but at the same time, they're calling people Gringos. The nerve, right? So they said they don't want basically Anglo Gringos to come over there because, again, ain't Black Americans coming over like that. So the Anglo Gringos or whoever else, primarily will be Anglo Gringos and maybe section out of Europeanists. They causing these high prices and stuff like that over there. And then I'm gonna share a couple of videos about that. I'm just gonna basically finish up the podcast on that. And so you can see the irony and hypocrisy of it, but they don't have a problem with numbers of them, their cousins and relatives and etc. going to El Norte, breaking border breaking illegal immigration, or being border breaking illegal immigrant, are just repeating the same hashness of we're escaping from political violence, we're escaping physical violence. By who? Oh, well, by the questions you not asked, by who? Well, the people that look like other Mexicanos. So what are you talking about, right? You see, we have the same old regurgitate agenda terminology, right? How many of those border breaking illegal immigrant women, right, sitting there get their food stamps, by the way, and you lost those kids as pawns to get those food stamps, and some of them popping out, or many of them popping out more kids, adding more food stamps, getting them on Medicaid, free of charge. And especially before the Trumpers got in office, how many of them were sitting there getting rental assistance, housing assistance, and whatever much resources to help them specifically out. But Black Americans can't sit there and get no reparations. Boy, that's a whole different topic. And again, I'm not talking about some gullible versions of Black Americans or some naive versions, because there's quite a number of them. Unfortunately, modern day, it's an insult to the American Blacks ancestors who had lost their lives fighting to be treated equally. So the system knows it's only a small amount of Black Americans in America who you ain't gonna fool and play a little game with, right? And understands the insult. How you got all these groups of border break illegal immigrants and these various parts of immigrationists soaking up resources, but they ran and fled from their own various countries, right? For people that look like them, that they soak up the resources over here because they are used as an agenda to basically try to bypass more and more Black Americans. That's disgusting, because they wouldn't tolerate that stuff if it was reversed. And they know it's not enough Black Americans to call that hypocrisy out. And they know it's not enough Black Americans to call out some of these little mestizo Mexicano versions, because it ain't the various parts of Anglo kind of sort of mestizo versions of Mexicanos, because they're not the ones trying to come across that El Norte. You notice that it is a certain pauper look of Mexicanos, most of them in those protests. You don't sit there and see no Anglo mestizo European Mexicano versions coming across those boards like that. You will not. Nope.
Nosotros aquí los negritos.
Sí, hay muchos no saben, por eso ya ven aquí. Yo voy a comer aquí, ¿ok? Me quiero dar foto. I want a big fish. Nosotros vamos a caminar un poco para conocer más gente, ¿ok? Okay, so she has some fish, seafood. We're gonna come try when we come back. Okay, we're gonna sing, okay?
Boy, I tell you, hold on, let me see. But at the same time, you got some of these Mexicanos, the one supplies to, they be like, oh my goodness, the Gringos, they come across Mexico and they're taking over and we're tired of them. They're not speaking Spanish. You know, they're called the gentrification. I mean, the nerve of it. And they're quiet on the gentrification of America in various parts of black neighborhoods by certain numbers of Mexicanos and certain type of Hispanicism and certain type of, black adjacent childhood cosplaying ones, right? Not talking about some of the good ones. Those are very small ones. Because in America, the ones that are allowed to come to America from various parts of Africa, those are the coon versions that are allowed to come over to America. In various parts of the Caribbean, I'm not talking about the beautiful small amount that come through from the Caribbean to America, and they're not trying to insult Black Americans because they understand without Black Americans, many of them wouldn't be in America, right? Those are a small amount because the ones that are allowed to come to America and also so-called resources, fleeing away from their beautiful places in the Caribbean and fleeing away from various parts of Africa, right? From people that look like them because they can't stop the corruption and can't stop the tribalism going on in various places, right? And have the nerve to talk about Black Americans. The nerve, while Black Americans already built up this country in America for centuries, while the people sit there and come over and have the nerve to try to sit there and tell Black Americans that they lazy. You have to freaking mind. Right? It's not enough Black Americans. It is not enough for Black Americans to roast people. Right? So I know you ain't talking about various parts of Africa and none of the Chinese and some other cultures that are taking over various parts of Africa. I know you ain't trying to talk about Black Americans. When you talking about what a continent full of various parts of Black folk on that, and some personnel how many Africans don't even like other Africans and tribalism, and some of the good brothers and sisters from Africa, they know who they are. They know there's some coons and sellouts over there. You see how this game goes, right? They know it's not no Black Americans to call these people out, right? So let me start right here. But right quick again, before I show these couple of videos about this other hypocrisy, and basically gonna call it a day on the podcast. The show. Let the Negro fight his own battles. His problems are not mine. I don't want to ally with him. Felix Terragina, Mexican-American president of LULAC, 1956 to 1960. The nerve. So this wannabe white Hispanic that showed this hatred and vileness out of his mouth. He's a Mexican, this particular version of Mexican. And various parts of Mexicans don't want to talk about that. You see how this game goes, right? So let me share my screen on these two particular videos. I'm going to call it a day. And I'm just going to show you the hypocrisy across that board in various parts of Mexico. I mean, the hypocrisy is outrageous. Give me a special. Give me a pose. Give me a second here. Video shows. Let me play this one. Let me play this one here then. Okay, hold on. Make sure I'm trying to make sure hypocrisy. Give me a second here. Okay, let me play this one. I mean, look at this. Let me make sure my mute is off. I mean, look at this. Let me look at this hypocrisy. Protesters, all the Mexican protesters, once applied to, highlighted the struggles faced by locals, known as the Mexican locals, due to soaring rents and neighborhoods transformations, but they quiet on their counterparts, their relatives, cousins, friends, etc., that's fleeing over there and getting the El Norte, and the ones that Mexicanos, the ones applies to, that are playing the games over in America, right? Soaking up resources. No, the border break, illegal immigrant women soaking up Medicaid for those kids that they're using them as pawns, popping those more kids out like kind of popples, right? and benefit off of black pain, right? No, don't know a dang thing about Black American history, basically, but they're benefiting off of it, right? And they have nerve complain, like some other mankind, some other people, about the ice race. The freaking nerve. But you best believe if Black Americans were going across that border, southern border, or some parts of Africa, or some parts of the Caribbean, and breaking immigration laws, do you not realize those citizens ain't going to play that tactic? First of all, like in Mexico, that's a whole different topic. You ain't supposed to protest if you're not a citizen. Oh, many people don't know about that. And you better not go to Mexico and protest and have an American flag. So this is why this system loves the way things are. They love it because they understand that many numbers of Americans, I'm not talking about someone that's popped over here or became naturalized a generation or so ago or some second or third generation. Man, please. That's newcomer stuff. American people, like American blacks, has been in this country for centuries. Better not go across that border and have an American flag and say, this is open border. We believe in open borders. And they're over there because they're educated and they're hardworking. They do all this and they can sit there and make Mexico, various places better. They'd be like, don't come over here doing that, insulting us. And then you have a Mexican flag and you trying to tell us what to do in our politics. They'd be like, get that out of here. But at the same dang time, vice versa, they ain't got a problem with those Mexicanos having the Mexican flag in America. The nerve.
Legales justamente por esta parte del Estado que priva las
Oh, look at that. Gringo go home. I mean, is this not the hypocrisy? That they talking about gringos go home, but at the same time, if you have certain numbers within America saying, hey, legal immigrants or have immigration personnel, if you take on space and you can't respect being in America and humble yourself, well, you know what? I can go back home too. Oh my goodness. Y'all hate immigrants. You hate Mexicans. You hate this personnel. You hate that. You see this related to this topic. Certain type Mexicanos that are illegal. Oh, it's numbers of them that's illegal. Don't get this shit confused. Right? If you say, well, numbers of them need to go back home, oh my goodness, you're being discriminatory. Oh, but it's okay. Like this video telling however other people cross that border that's coming over there, they're not breaking immigration laws like that. They're coming across there, whatever legal way they're doing it, in a truly way, legal, not pseudo way. And they're setting up, buying up different things, however businesses, setting up shops, right? And you have certain type of Mexicanos across that border saying in other places, oh my, the rent is going up, price is going up, we can't afford it. Oh, but they ain't got a problem with Mexicanos breaking immigration laws or pseudo doing immigration stuff in America, utilizing resources for free. And some of those women that are sitting there breaking immigration laws, doing border immigration law, basically border breaking immigration lawness, are saying pseudo immigration loopholeness, lawness, right? Regurgitate the same little thing. We're escaping violence, political violence, physical violence. We're scared to go back home. By whom? Other people that look like them. So you see the game of that. But Black Americans saying tired of racism in America, and some go to other countries, a small sliver of it. You don't sit there hear Black Americans complaining at some level that other people do. And Black Americans, as like no one else in America, will have the gigantic right to make that complaint, to do that. So this is some hypocrisy right here by certain numbers of Mexicanos that don't want people to come across that border, especially Angloism, however, some other people, because they ain't talking about Chinese people, some Indians from India, some other cultures setting up shop. They ain't telling them to go somewhere. Nope, because they know their places. So they're telling certain type of Anglo, because since America is right the closest thing to the border, by the way, since That's logically on that, geographically. But they don't want the Anglos to go across that border, set up shop, and rent increases. But at the same time, how numbers of Anglos that are gentrifying various parts of black neighborhoods, because and they want Atlanta, and they're going to gentrify Atlanta. Mark my words, they're going to gentrify Atlanta a lot more. They've already gentrified Washington, gentrified various parts of New York, gentrified parts of various parts of Black Americans in certain sections of California. The list goes on, right? But at the same time, Mexicanos, they ain't got a problem with them coming to America and doing their pseudo gentrifying stuff like that, pushing out various parts of blacks. Oh, they ain't got a problem with that. Man, please. The hypocrisy of this.
Sobre la vida, ¿no?
And look at this. The influx of U.S. migrants in districts like Colonial Condesa has exacerbated gentrification issues, prompting calls for legal migration. Man, you're talking about the brown kettle calling the brown swan a goose. The nerve of some Mexicanos talking about they call for legal migration, but you have some people in various parts of America call for legal migration too, for various parts of immigration personnel. And you got people going crazy. You got various parts of Mexicanos and some other groups going crazy and call it discriminatory because they want open borders. But at the same time, you got numbers of Mexicanos in various parts of Mexico that they want legal migration. People. See, and that's the image. That's the image on the thumbnail, and so image at the beginning of the show. This shows you the hypocrisy. And I'm gonna show one other video. I'm just gonna finish up the show. Look at the Mexico Powder Los Mexicanos. Affluent foreigners, particularly Americans, not talking about Black Americans not going across that border like that, are increasingly working remotely in Mexico City due to its lower cost of living compared to most American cities. But at the same time, they do not want, let me phrase it, they have no problem with the influxualization of many numbers of Mexicanos, and quite a number are not legal. Being this time, don't get it confused. There's numbers of Africans, there's numbers of Caribbeans, there's numbers of Europeans, and this goes on that are breaking border immigration laws. Don't get confused, right? But Black Americans better not go to the Caribbean, break immigration laws, and not have the proper documentation. Black Americans better not go to various parts of Africa and break immigration laws. You said it. You see the hypocrisy. And they know it's not enough Black Americans to call this hypocrisy regardless. They know it's not. But see, the hypocrisy you see right here in this situation, Mexico Powder Los Mexicanos, right? Mexico for Mexicans. But for Americans saying America's for America, that's discriminatory. These ICE raids on various parts of Mexican neighborhoods, certain parts of Chinese neighborhoods. Oh, that's a whole different topic, right? Oh, it's a whole different topic. Anyway, whole different topic. Some other Asian groups, some other. Anyway, it's a whole different topic, right? So when various other groups are now being on the opposite of the radar of being deported, oh my goodness, we got to stop this ICE raid. Oh my, and you got these little treasonous type of political figures, the ones applies to these various types of mayors being treasonous, and there's other person being treasonous. They want to protect border breakers and say, we're sanctuary cities. That should be illegal. How the hell are you going to be a sanctuary city protecting border breaker illegal immigrants when numbers are the same ones, unless they're of that other agenda, unless they're of the old culture that they're trying to protect? That's a whole different thing in itself. One applies to. Because Black Americans can't go to other countries and break immigration laws like that. And they surely going to have sanctuary cities in Africa in the Caribbean for Black Americans, they'd be like, no, y'all got to come over here. Y'all got to come over here some resources. Y'all got to come over here and do. You see the hypocrisy. But going back to this situation, the nerve of these Mexicanos, the ones it applies to. And by the way, that's why I try to relate to people. Look at the colors: green, the green, white, and the red part, Mexican flag, right? And many knows the Mexicanos don't even know when the Mexican flag come to existence. Many knows the Mexicans don't even know Mexican's history. Many of them confusing their own lineage. There are many numbers of Mexicanos that's confused in their lineage. So that's what the interesting part. People trying to play chaos game with Black Americans as if Black Americans don't have their own unique culture, which Black Americans have their own unique culture, right? In itself. But yes, this is some hypocrisy on this situation.
No conforme, trans incluyente. Para legitimar el despojo.
Oh, look at this. This trend has sparked backlash because Americans, they talk about various parts of Anglo-Americans, can stay in Mexico for up to 180 days without a visa. Okay, so pay taxes. Look at this hypocrisy. Pay taxes, speak Spanish, use pesos. The nerve. How many Mexicanos come to America and don't pay no freaking taxes? I've been studying this for a long time. And I get so disgusted. And that these games are so easy to see them when you know them. At least some of them. Because they're trying to say, oh my goodness, well, there's some Mexicans that pay taxes. Go to hell. Most don't. And how someone use the EIN documentation, wherever it is, how many of them utilize that, or how many of the people share a certain documentation or share a certain type of residence and use that for a base, and they do certain type of switchery, should we say, in tax situations and stuff like that, and utilize certain residential situations or certain falsified relatives, and they get thousands of dollars of earned income credit and whatever other resources. Yes, the nerves, they ain't paying no taxes to get that kind of stuff like that. The very small amount, they do pay a little bit comparably. Again, they're getting gigantic types of earned income credit in comparison to what they've paid in. And what about the ones, and by the way, regardless, if you are not a citizen and say you have the legality, or you're not legal, but they say, okay, if you get this EIN number, whatever other number, you're not legal, wink, wink, whatever it is, you pay into this, that don't mean you are supposed to be sitting there getting EIC, right? Do you see how this game goes? It's a disturbing, disgusting, but it's a interesting tactic. How many of those border break illegal immigrant women that's popping out kids left or right ain't paid nothing but getting free neonatal care, free pregnancy care, free pregnancy birthing, post-birthing care, free of charge, free translation services. The kids now are getting free Medicaid, free dental for the next, 18, 20-something years, wherever it is, free food stamps. Well, Trump is in November. I'm not paying attention to whatever. That's a whole different topic. If it even does that, that'll be so freaking temporarily, right? And then what happens when Trump is not in the office after 2028? And however, back to the same similar tactics again, more border breaker illegal immigration, record breaking is going to happen even more again. So I'm like, I don't even want to hear that switchery tactic. And how many border breakers, legal immigrant women, and some of those males, that get food stamps? How the hell you getting food stamps to your border breaker? Because numbers of them utilizing loopholes and utilize these kids as pawns. In this situation, you have various parts of Mexicano women utilize these kids as pawns, getting thousands of dollars of earned income credit, and many of them ain't paying nobody's taxes. And how many of those are border break illegal immigrant type of males sitting there making a gigantic amount of money, and they're sending money back to free of charge, by the way, however it goes on that, but they send a lot of money going back to Mexico. You see how this game goes, right? You see how the game goes.
Bueno, vayan preparando sus mejores cosas.
No se vende, se cuida y se defiende.
The reason we've gathered here is precisely to hear the thoughts of many victims, mainly young people today for whom it's almost impossible to live, to find housing. It's not just that. We're living the consequences of gentrification, which is the government directing its public policies towards people with higher purchasing power, often illegally displacing local populations who have lived in these neighborhoods for 40, 50, and we have documented cases of up to 60 years. The main issues are precisely the rising rent costs, which is the only housing model the government provides. In 5 years, rents have increased by 47%. This is violent for the local population. We are debating whether to pay for electricity, water, or food. Of course, we choose to eat.
Justamente por esta parte del Estado que priva las ganancias sobre.
Primarily, if they're going to come to live in a country, they have to contribute to that country. The first and simplest issue is legal migration. They come here with visas or no visas. And still the change in purchasing power generates these problems of gentrification and displacement.
I mean, give me a second, Hero. Give me a second. This is what I'm looking at that nonsense he's talking about. So they got a problem with numbers of Anglos and Harvard personnel because ain't Black Americans going to Mexico, and they're doing remote jobs or setting up whatever businesses or wherever it is, and say they doing stuff legally overall, right? Oh my goodness! And you got Harvard, other Mexicanos businesses, and they're catering to certain ones, certain Anglo ones, businesses, Harvard other people, and you got the Mexicanos complaining. You see the nerve of that. But at the same time, they ain't saying nothing about the Mexicanos come to America, the ones applies to break immigration laws, the ones applies to numbers of border break illegal immigrant numbers of women. Sitting there popping out those kids like candy poppers, right? Ain't paid not 1/2 cents in any kind of taxes, right? But they getting free medical, free dinner for those children that they use as pawns. And how many of those other kids, they come over here with what, 2, 3 kids already, I'm saying in general, averaging. And so they pop out a couple of more, whatever it is, depending, may pop out more than that. And bam, automatic citizenship. So if they got 6 kids, those or 5 kids, those 4, 5, 6 kids, 7 kids, whatever it is, and they under 18, how many of them they getting, especially they young kids under 5? No, let's say no. Let's say she got 2 kids already, 1 to 2 years old. She pops out a female kids. They still under 5 years old. So those 4 or 5 kids, automatic citizenship. Oh, excuse me. So she has 1 or 2 kids. Both one is 1 year old, 1 and 2 years old. She pops out a couple of more. So she got 4 kids, right? So 4 of those kids, 2 of those kids gonna get what? Automatic citizenship, right? And then whatever loopholes and whatever situation to try to get the other kids in some kind of legalness, if they can, right? But eventually they do the proper terminate the proper situation, and they have a good situation of doing that. But this is why they want to continue with the DACA program, right? Deferred action of childhood arrivals, which basically means they see you got these people that want to keep helping border break illegal immigrants, right? These women and men, wherever it is, to sit there and get a pathway to citizenship. These are games, right? break border immigration laws, but they still want to be rewarded. And numbers of these border break illegal immigrant numbers of women that's popping up these kids like popcorn, right? And the ones that they didn't bring over there to America when they did border break illegal immigrant agenda. So the ones that they brought over there, okay, they still are able to get food stamps for them, and so they pop out several more, and those extra ones they're getting not only food stamps for those pawns that they're using, they're now our American citizens. See this game. This is the way I'm looking when they play this little game. I'm looking at them like, y'all think people are so stupid, the ones that don't know the game on that. Now, there's some silly ones that don't know, and this is what they coming over to America to get too, right? They ain't got no free stuff like this going on in Mexico, not like this. Black American women can't go across that border, have kids, and they become Mexican citizens, and they got some kind of free food program. But they be like, get the hell out of here, Negro American. America is the #1 immigrationist allowability country in this planet that allows more immigration to anybody else. Anybody else has more type of border break illegal immigrants, especially Mexicans, come to America. And they're benefit, and they're gentrifying various places in California, left and right. And again, pushing out Black Americans that will tell you that they're sitting there being gentrified out by some hateful Mexicanos. I had did also, well, anyway, some podcasts before on that, where high school or junior high, whatever it was, where this black youth were getting harassed by various parts of Mexican youth. And they sit there and one of them, I think, brought a knife, was trying to juke the Black American boy. The Black American boy was able to get that knife, and whatever it is happened. And they try to charge the Black American boy for protecting himself from these violent Mexican youth at this particular school that was jumping on the Black American boy. I did a podcast on that. And how many Black Americans there in California sit there would tell you that they have gotten hatredness by numbers of Mexicanos once applies to. I did a podcast before on the Real CP show that on that situation, that the thing about it is where there was at the LA City Council not a long time ago, where this hateful Mexican American, this Mexican woman, no telling where her parents was from, no even telling. But Harvard situation and some other Mexicans that was on the LA City Council, they were spearing out hatred for Black Americans. They were spearing out hatred for Black Americans on the LA City Council. The president of the LA City Council, she stepped down, but some of the other hateful Mexican Americans, the ones applies to, they didn't want to step down. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, there's so many numbers of Mexicano type of women and men up in various parts of California that have a hatred to Mexico, that have a hatred for Black Americans on that situation, because they want various parts of America, Mexico 3.0. And then see, many of them don't even know Mexico's history. And they actually think Mexico, they actually think United States, parts of the United States was Mexico. How in the hell Mexico gonna be part of the United States when a few hundred years ago there was no such thing as Mexico? So people got some damn nerves, man. So I think there's another video I was going to show, but I'm not going to do that. I'm getting a little tired now. So what I'm going to do is show this video called Echelon. This is a very extremely important video that's happening. This agenda that's going on by a certain type of Mexicanos. And again, I'm not talking about some of the good ones, so we're not going to play that, because you'll have some ones they be like, "Oh my goodness, why people be having a give me a second? Why people be having a hatred for various parts of Mexicanos?" See, they playing games. They play that game. I be doing like this. Right? People like, "Oh my goodness. I mean, why people keep talking about Mexicanos?" Again, I'm like this when they try to play that tactic. I'm not playing that because I know their agenda very well, right? Because again, numbers of those border break illegal immigrant women, Mexicanos, once applies to. They're getting this for free. These free food stamps. Oh, and a lot of people ain't talking about them, the border break illegal immigrant women that are getting those food stamps, right? Because remember all these times, Black American women, they're food stamp queens, and when it's been Anglo women overall that's got the most food stamps, that's got the most welfare. So the nerve of some irony of certain types of Anglo women, the ones applies to when they're out there BITCH and online talking about food stamps and stuff like that, when at the same time they get quiet, right? When they make sure that the conversation is focused on some small amount of Black American women getting food stamps. You said this game goes, but the overall part, before I play this last video, it is extremely important video on that called Line. Well, people are interested in that. I'm gonna show you if you haven't heard that word before on that. But the food stamp thing, I'm not going to get into all. I was going to do a podcast, and now I'm not going to do that on the Real CP show. If anybody's interested, you can type in the Real CP show part of it on that situation. If you want to see what kind of videos I have on that situation, and go to the live tab, you can see the various videos in the video tab and the home tab, and you see the different things. But I'm not going to do that because, again, be it November, food stamps are cut, be it parts of December, however it go, because by next year it'll be back again, be back normal again. And when Trump is out the office in 2028, that however more border breaking, illegal immigrant, and another immigration people playing games, stuff like that, it's going to be right back going again in 2029. So I'm not going to even go into all that. So that's a whole game in itself. So again, as long as none of the Mexicano women can sit there and get free Medicaid. See, they ain't talking about that part, are they? Hey, we got to stop allowing border break illegal immigrant type personnel in certain parts of immigrationists to sit there and just automatically have the kids that get free Medicaid and free dental and the free food stamps and however welfare utilizing those kids. In other situations, or even a border break illegal immigrant elder, how some of them are eligible for a certain type of Social Security. Also, other people that know about certain types of older that they don't necessarily be citizens, and they did not have to even work. And how many of them are getting some kind of Social Security or something? This is why you have certain types of older immigration type personnel from certain parts of India, certain parts of Europe, certain parts of Africa, not as many because the system allows certain ones come over, but various parts of India, various parts of Mexico, various parts of some other places, right? That they allow certain type of older elders to get Social Security, some kind of loophole in the Social Security, never worked. Right, that's a whole different thing itself. How they do chain migration, right? Some people come over, many people come over border break illegal immigrant are allowed in certain legalness, loopholeness, and they sit there and chain migrate their say a son, a daughter, or grandparents, whatever it is, or somebody back in the original country, and they chain migrate them to come over America, and they put the paperwork in, and the chain migration to America is happening over and over again. And the people who's going to pay the price for that overall is going to be Black Americans by the millions, with very few exceptions on that. The ones that know the game, right? So this is my last thing I want to sit there and show called @line. Give me one moment here. Where is it at? Where's my @line video at? Give me 1 second here. I think I just saw it. And this is the last thing I'm going to play for this, maybe a minute or two, maybe less. And I'm going to close out the show.
We remain a hunted people. Now you think you have a destiny to fulfill in this land that historically has been ours for 40,000 years.
First of all, Mexico was not around a few hundred years ago, let alone 40,000 years ago. So And by the way, in this video I'm showing, oh, this has been going on for quite a number of years, by the way.
And we're a new mestizo nation. This is our homeland. We cannot, we will not, and we must not be made illegal in our own homeland. We are not immigrants that came from another country to another country. We are migrants free.
If you think I'm illegal because I am Mexican, learn the true history because something. First of all, that food don't even know Mexico's history in the first place. First of all, they wouldn't even been having no damn sombrero a few hundred years ago. Second of all, the Aztec Empire was the last great civilization in the 1500s, not Mexican. The Aztecs were not called Mexicans. Mexico was not Mexico a few hundred years ago. There was no such thing as Mexican a few hundred years ago. So they don't know their own damn history, right?
Travel the length and breadth of the Americas because we belong here. We are millions. We just have to survive. We have an aging white America. They are not making babies. They're dying. It's a matter of time.
The nerve, hold on. We are indigenous, the only owners of this continent. Mexico movement. You see the damn fools. You heard, they said they are the indigenous. They are the indigenous, the only owners of this continent. The continent. So the whole North American continent, right, is the original people are Mexicans. When they weren't even the original, when they don't even come from Mexico. Or let me phrase that, when Mexicans are a latecomer group in Mexico. Because the Mexicans, there's no such thing as Mexicans taking over nothing in the 1500s. There's no such thing as Mexicans like that in general. Because again, the Aztecs Empire, the last great civilization of Mexico, anyway, we call it Mexico, whatever that's supposed to mean, because again, 200 years ago, there was no such thing as Mexico. And the Aztecs, right, Montezuma and stuff like that, they were not Mexican. They were called Aztecs. And the Aztec Empire was a conglomeration of various types of tribes, not Mexicans. Do you see this little silly tactic they keep trying to play and act like Mexicans are the indigenous? How in the hell can Mexicans be indigenous when they weren't even Mexicans a few hundred years ago in Mexico like that? And the Olmecs people, the ones that know, it's many people that don't know who the Olmecs are. The Olmecs predate Mexico. The Olmecs predate what you call Mexicans. The Olmecs predate what you call the Aztecs. So how in the hell can they be the only indigenous people on the continent of North America, Mexico, Mexicans, when they are extremely latecomers, way after the Olmecs have already, because Olmecs are what they call the first great civilization of Mexico. So how can Mexicans be the progenitors of Mexico when the Olmecs were already there before the Mexico was even in existence? I'm telling you, man, that's why I don't like people that play silly tactics like this, right? But I'm just gonna start right here because I'm just making me tired. These little games, man. So for people that's interested, just take a look at the nation of Aztlan, which again means the retaking of the southwestern state. There is an agenda for various parts of Mexicanos once applies to, because they want open borders. But as I sit there and showed you, Vino, right before, we had these little irony, hypocritical Mexicanos once applies to across various parts of Mexico, complaining about, talking about gringos, which should be a discriminatory terminology, by the way, calling somebody a gringo, because could those same people come to America and somebody change the prices on them? Could they go to some Black American restaurants, right? And Black Americans change the prices on them and say, oh, because they're Mexican, we got to change the prices. That won't be tolerated. But apparently, you go to different countries, people can sit there and give you some gringo prices. That should be discriminatory. How in the hell are you gonna charge somebody more money, but they won't want to come to America and have somebody charge them more money because of them being not American citizens? The damn nerve. And even there are numbers of Black Americans that know. They do some traveling, and people have tried to charge the ones it applies to, try to charge them some kind of gringo prices in different places. You'd be like, wait a minute, no. And some of them speak Spanish, not enough at all, but some, no. Or anyway. So it's like, no. Give me the menu for the locals, and they can point or whatever it is, or use whatever translation software or whatever it is at this time, 2025, whatever it is. I'm just saying, and be pointing and clicking and stuff like that to say this is they want. But yes, it's discriminatory to have somebody placing gringo prices across that border, high prices in some other countries, but at the same time, the same type of people won't want to come to America and have somebody charge them high ass prices. You see the game. But yes, for anybody that's interested, the Nation of Islam is a very important video, and it shows the game. This was going on when Daddy Bush was the president. So this video had been in existence for a few years. And again, it's called the Nation of Islam, which means the retaking over of the southwestern states, because they actually they really do think that various parts of America were Mexico. How in the hell is it gonna be Mexico when before Mexico was made up of various types of indigenous people before Mexican? Are they crazy as hell? And then various parts of what we call Mexico, whatever again, what the hell that's supposed to mean, right? You had certain type of political figures, should we say, that sit there and sold various parts. Let me preach this again. There are however numbers within Mexicanos that sold various parts of Mexico to however parts of people in the U.S., and that's how various parts of the treaty, and that's how certain parts of southwestern states and including certain parts of Texas became part of what we call, I guess, the United States. They didn't sit there and attack and grab up the states and stuff like that. It was sold. The state, those various parts of the states was sold from Mexicano type political figures in Mexico. So they don't know their own damn history, let alone they don't know where the Mexican flag comes from. They don't know Mexicans' history. Can't stand when people play little silly games like that. So I think the last thing I want to do, I want to ask ChatGPT something for a second, actually. So let me share my screen for one moment on this. I'm going to call it a day. Are you there?
Absolutely. I'm right here. How can I help you today?
I would like to find out about the word Mexico. The word Mexico, was there a word called Mexico 500 years ago?
Yeah, that's a great question. The name Mexico actually comes from the Nahuatl language, and it originally referred to the Mexica people who founded Tenochtitlan. The term was used around the early 14th century, and by the time of the Spanish conquest in the 16th century, it was already in use. So yes, the name has been around for quite some time.
The problem is with that is that again, I'm familiar with the Nahuatl word called the Nahuatl people that were Mexicans. Is that not correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. The Mexica people were just one of the Nahuatl speaking groups, and they were the ones who founded Tenochtitlan and are the ancestors of modern day Mexicans. But the term Mexican today is much broader and includes a mix of many different indigenous groups and cultures. So definitely there's that distinction.
Right. And I know it's a game in itself that you have certain people that call themselves Mexicans that really don't even know where the word Mexico comes from, because as you said, Tenochtitlan was basically Tenochtitlan was not built by the Mexicans. Am I not correct on that?
Yeah, exactly. Tenochtitlan was founded by the Mexica, who were one of the Nahuatl speaking groups. And what today the term Mexican encompasses a huge variety of people. Not everyone necessarily traces their lineage directly back to the Mexica. So it definitely is a bit more complex and nuanced in terms of history and identity.
Right. And the thing about it is, when was various parts of Mexico? And I think, let me phrase that in a wrong interpretation of, I'm sure you know in history, where there are certain numbers of Mexicans that once applies to, they say that the United States took their land. Well, I'm sure you know that that's a little white lie, because is it not true that various parts of Mexico was actually sold by various Mexican political personnel? Is that not correct?
Yeah, that's definitely a complex part of history. The territory that the U.S. acquired, especially through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, did involve negotiations where Mexico ceded a large portion of its land. There were definitely political decisions and pressures on the Mexican side, and it's not just a simple one-sided story. So yeah, there's definitely more nuance to it for sure.
Right, and I understand there's the game in itself that people are not saying correctly. Just as you know, what we call Afro-Mexicanos. Are you familiar with them?
Oh, absolutely. Afro-Mexicanos are definitely a significant part of Mexico's history and culture. They're the descendants of African slaves who were brought to Mexico during the colonial period, and they have a rich cultural heritage, especially in regions like the Costa Chica and Guerrero and Oaxaca. It's definitely an important part of the Mexican identity that's sometimes overlooked.
And the thing about it is it not true that before Mexico was Mexico, the great civilization of the Olmecs predates Mexico? Is that not correct?
Absolutely, you're spot on. The Olmecs are often considered one of the earliest major civilizations in Mesoamerica, and they thrived long before the rise of the Mexica or the Aztecs. They're often referred to as the mother culture of Mesoamerica, and their influence definitely predates what we now know as Mexico. It's fascinating how all those ancient cultures laid the groundwork for what came later.
And is it not true that the Olmecs would have not been considered Mexicans, but there is a hypothesis that they might have been of an African tribe or tribes? Is that a correct analysis?
Yeah, that idea is definitely one of those theories that comes up in some circles. The mainstream academic consensus is that the Olmecs were indigenous to the region and that their civilization developed from local roots. But there are indeed some fringe theories that suggest possible connections with African cultures. It's definitely a controversial and debate.
But here's the problem. You and I know, and you have a wide database of knowledge across the planet. You and I both know it's interesting that when we said the word and you relayed over the same information, that there's really no such thing as the word Mexico in the way it's defined, because 500 years ago, there would have been no such thing as a Mexican as we think now. But it's funny how when people say Mexican, that's accepted as if Mexico is a definement of what Mexican is. But the Aztecs, the last great civilization of Mexico, would have not called themselves Mexicans, but you still have people that say Mexico and they say that's Mexican, and it is accepted. But at the same time, when you bring up the word Olmecs who predate Mexico, then you have people that want to sit there and act that they want to have fringe explanations. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense. It's definitely fascinating how the term Mexican has evolved over time and how modern identities kind of encompass so many different historical layers. And as you said, the ancient civilizations like the Olmecs or even the Maya and the Aztecs had their own distinct identities that were very different from what we...
Exactly. They're their own identities. And it's interesting how even though the Olmecs have alpha chord heads, and you still have people that try to act like they just call them Mexicans. And I'm pretty sure you agree. How can the Olmec heads, the Olmec people, be Mexicans? And when the Olmec, matter of fact, when did the Olmecs, when is the consensus of when did the Olmecs thrive? And what was the time and space, the time frame of what is the theoriness of the time frame of how long were the Olmecs around?
Yeah, definitely. The Olmecs are generally considered to have thrived roughly between about 1400 BCE and 400 BCE. So they were really among the earliest complex societies in Mesoamerica. And you're right. It's definitely interesting how the idea of identity and labeling has evolved over time. The Olmecs definitely predate the concept of modern Mexico, and it really shows how layered and complex the region's history is.
I do appreciate it, and thank you.
Of course, I'm glad we could chat about it. If you have any more questions or just want to dive into anything else, just let me know. I'm always here to help.
As you heard already, that the Olmecs predate what we call Mexicans. So how can they be Mexicans? You see the game. And again, you have some personnel that keep trying to play this little sidetrack switchery, right? And stuff like that. Well, I really don't matter because y'all just being anti-Mexican. Again, like, go to hell with that game.
Here are your arrows back.
That's why I'm like, when they try to play that little game right there, I just put that right back on them. Because many of them don't even know their own history in Mexico. Because Mexico is a mixture of poshness of various types of, European and some sections of African and whatever other indigenous. So you really don't have a lot of Mexicans who know their background. And again, I've asked the question to numbers of Mexicans, explain the Mexican flag. And many of them have no idea. And ask them, hey, where did the word Mexico come from? Many of them have no idea, right? Or how did some of the land that you say is Mexico, who was in that land before Mexico, right? And do you know how that land stood there and was presented to higher sections of America? Do you realize not that land was not basically just colonized? You do not, apparently you don't know that, and they don't know. Right? They think you say Mexico's Mexico. Mexicans, they don't know about Mexico. The Mexicans. And Mexicans was not all up and down California, and I forget whatever the other, they were not all up in Arizona and New Mexico. None of the Mexicans, they were not like that, and they certainly were not all up in Texas. Please, before the Alamo in the 1830s, that situation in Alamo, and what we call Tejas now, there was not the number of Mexicans that people think it was. It was really this this land with some few little people that had nothing to do with Mexicans. You see how this game goes. But if you don't know the game they keep trying to play, right? Because they want to have the Mexicans this applies to. They are slick, but they don't want to talk about, again, the Afro-Mexicanos that are still catching hell across various parts of Mexico. And that's what they showed you about Mamin Paguin, right? For the people, let me sit there and show you last thing about Mamin Paguin. That they don't want to, again, across Mexico, talk about Mamin Paguin, right? The little very disgustingality of how they sit there and try to betray a certain look. So you see the big old John Ancha Mama, what they try to portray Black American women like the shucks. What was that? What was the name of the movie? The Birth of a Nation. Birth of a Nation. What was that? Gone with the Wind. When they also try to show Black American women in a certain type of way. It's in various types of movies, silent screens with a non-silent screen. They show Black American women with this size with the handkerchief around her head, right? And you like that one in Mexico like that. So where did they get that image, right? Oh, but see, they don't want to talk about that part. And then you see the little anthropomorphic little ape little boy, chimpanzee looking boy, right? He was a representation of a little black boy because this caricature wasn't over Mexico, right? In a time where this was shown like that. So where did they get this image from? So before they got this image from certain parts of Black Americans and stuff like that, from certain ones, right? The at your mama type look. Prior to this situation in Mexico, there was no look like this. And this anthropomorphic little ape, this little chimpanzee little boy, representation of some little black boy, right? And he's some main big time characters. They had many type of comic books, and there's a few people that got outraged in various parts of Mexicans, and including some very high ups, should we say. They were like, well, we don't see a problem. But if you start talking about Speedy Gonzalez, right? Oh my goodness, man, go to hell with those tactics. I can't stand when people play infantile games like that, man. I'm like, if you're gonna play some games, play the game. But infantile tactics, I cannot stand. I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show.